Hello kids, it is King's Drummer, and in this video I'm going to do a thread response to Timothy John Henderson's 100 plus homies contest. Congratulations, Tim, you broke the century mark in the subs count, and I love your channel. Great channel, you show some good stuff there, and you're a good friend, so I thought I'd jump on it and do a response to your thread here. So in celebration of Tim passing the century mark, let's answer the questions that he asked here, and I had to write them down because I couldn't remember. Okay, so what do I like about you, your channel, your videos? What brings me back every time? Well, let's see here. I mean, every member of the VC will show an album or artist that I've never heard of before, and so I always learn something from every member of the VC on their videos, and you definitely have that as well. But what brings me back really is your personality, Tim. You seem like an upbeat, positive guy, and you show a lot of enthusiasm in everything you do, and that's real infectious. And so I really dig that about your personality is, yeah, like I said, you're like just being so upbeat and positive and always looking on the bright side of things, and putting a genuine enthusiasm and heartfelt enthusiasm into everything that you decide to throw yourself into, be it just listening to music, film, whatever. You seem to, if you find something you like, you have no problem throwing your whole heart into it, and I pick up that vibe from you, and that's what brings me back to your channel. I mean, yes, you do show some great vinyl, and you've shown some records and artists that I have never heard of before, so I am learning something from each one of your videos. But that is the one thing that brings me back, just your positive vibe, man. It rubs off on me, and I'm glad I found your channel, and glad that we're friends in the VC. So I always come back to you. I always look forward to your new videos, and I jump right on them. So that's what keeps me coming back. Okay, you're a film buff to the point where you even studied film, and you want me to show a couple of my favorite movies. And this is one thing that the two of us have in common, Tim. I didn't really study film. I studied video production, but of course the two tie together really well. I didn't study cinema per se. I just studied equipment, lights, camera, sound. But I do have some favorite films. I do have a favorite director, and from this favorite director, this is one of the best movies I thought he'd ever produce. The director is Martin Scorsese, and the movie is Goodfellas. I know it's a pretty mainstream pick, but it's mainstream for a reason. This is a fantastic, fantastic film. I love this movie to death. I remember seeing this in the theater the week it was released. Me and my older brother went to go see this film only because we were big Robert De Niro fans. We both were big fans of Robert De Niro and his acting, and I knew who Martin Scorsese was at the time, but the name really didn't make that big an impact on me until I saw this film in the theater. That opening scene where they're driving the car, they hear something in the back trunk, they pull over to see what's going on, and as they open the trunk, there's a man in their trunk, wrapped up in a tablecloth, just bleeding to death, about to die. And of course Joe Pesci's character, like, oh my God, he's still alive, he's still breathing, and he gets this really long freaking knife and just starts tagging the living crap out of him. And I just sat there like, holy, like everybody else in the theater, just like, holy Jesus. And from then on, it was just an amazing film. I've never read the book, but my cousin Fernando had read the book, and he says, man, because they quote the book pretty much word for word. It goes, it was a perfect representation of the book. And it's because most people always complain the book is always better than the movie. Not the case here. They say they did the book proud. And as far as how the whole thing ties together, it was done with voiceovers from Ray Liotta's character, which is this guy who plays Henry Hill. It was done with voiceover, so basically you're like a fly on the wall. It's like a fly on the wall's perspective of the mafia or gangsters, and you see it from not someone who's on the top, but someone who's kind of a soldier in this underground crime wave here. So you see it from a foot soldier's point of view. He's not exactly a mob boss, this character, but we hear things through his voiceovers. So you read it, you know what's going on in his head, as well as the action that's there, and some great scene. And so I really loved that angle of it. And it has one of my favorite shots when Ray Liotta's character is going into a nightclub with his date, he's trying to impress, who later becomes his wife. And so we get this world's longest Steadicam shot as they get out of the car, cross the street, go into a side door in the back, so they don't have to wait in the long line to get into this fabulous club. And you see them just go into the back corridor ways into the back way of the storage room of this restaurant and nightclub, through the kitchen, right to the maitre d'. They go right to the table that they're sitting right in front. It's a real long Steadicam shot. It's all done in one take. That's one of my favorite shots in the movie. How it was set up, it was just actually beautiful. I mean, I would like to tackle something like that if I ever decided to direct my own short film again. But this is definitely one of my favorite movies, Goodfellas. It's a fantastic film. The writing is good. The acting is top notch by these three gentlemen here, plus the entire cast. The director is awesome, of course, and the cinematography is really fantastic in this. Some of the shots that just blow me away. Some of the Steadicam shot I said, some of the crane shots, how they use music in this movie. There's some fantastic music being used in this movie. So one of my favorites. Another favorite, and it's music related. I almost want to say VC related. Comes from the director Cameron Crowe, and it is Almost Famous. There we go. And this right here is known as the bootleg edition. So they make it look like a vinyl bootleg, more or less. And in this collection, you get the theatrical release of the movie, which was called Almost Famous, and then you get the the director's cut. The director's cut, which is called Untitled. So you get both films in different forms. Theatrical director's cut, and you get a lot of behind-the-scenes extras, interviews. It even comes with a CD, because the whole movie is about a 70s rock band who are on the verge of becoming famous, but they're still a small-time band, and the band was called Stillwater, which is made up of a bunch of actors, really. But the band in the movie, the band had to have its own original music, so there was a collection of about 6 songs, and it comes with a Stillwater CD of the band's music. And I haven't really listened to this so much. I mean, there's some good songs on here. I think most of them are written by Nancy Wilson of Heart, who is married to the director Cameron Crowe. And of course, here's a little booklet that comes with it, so with still photographs of all the cast members in the background. And really had a crush on Kate Hudson when I saw this movie. God, she was gorgeous in this movie. It is one of my favorites. Cameron Crowe, as we know, was a journalist and a writer for Rolling Stone magazine when he was in his, I guess, late teens. And so he toured with Zeppelin, the Eagles, Frampton, all these famous classic rock stars. And with all those experiences, he wrote this film, Almost Famous. And basically, it's almost like his life story. A young kid who wants to be a writer, who's probably just about to graduate from high school, gets to work for Cream magazine, has to interview an up-and-coming rock band called Stillwater, and gets to go on tour with them, and writes everything he sees. And You know, if you're a fan of 70s rock, this is a great movie. This is a great movie. It's funny. There's some fantastic classic rock music in here. A lot of references to a lot of great bands and performers during this era of 1973. I believe was the year of the story. As far as how it's shot, there is some great scenes in here. As far as cinematography. Some beautiful scenes. The one I like the most, and I think people will like it the most, is the main character, whose name is William. As he's sitting in a bus, one of the groupies, as they're taking off out of the arena, one of the groupies is running along, trying to talk to him. So you see the back of his head looking out the bus window as they're leaving, and she's running, telling him that, you know, he had a message from his mother or something like that, and she goes, "Don't worry, I'll catch up to you guys in Buffalo," and she runs right into a pole, bam, like that. And the timing of it is so perfect, because shots like that are so hard to do. So you're looking over the character's head as he's looking out the window, and you could see her running as she's looking up, talking to him, and at that right moment, she pops right into the pole after she delivered this final line. I bet you that had to take forever just to figure out the timing of that, and that's what I admire about this movie. So these are two of my favorite films: Stillwater, Goodfellas. All right, an album that I can relate to a person in my life. It brings back memories. My best friend since high school, his name is David. His father was a big-time vinyl collector. This guy had a couple of thousand records. In this little apartment he lived in, he had like 3 bookshelves just in his living room, and then another 2 in his bedroom full of vinyl. But when he passed away a few years back, David had to figure out what to do with all these freaking records. And this is like 2 years before I discovered the VC. And he told me I had first crack at his vinyl, and I wasn't a vinyl collector yet. I mean, I had a turntable, I had some records, but his father was mostly into Spanish music, jazz, old jazz, like 40s jazz and jazz from the 50s, and show tunes. And that's more or less what he collected. He had a little bit of rock, but not a lot. So I actually just told him I would pass. I helped him box all the records, though, and David eventually gave me his father's 2 albums from Star Wars, which I showed in another video. And he also gave me this record because he knows I play drums, and I do like this drummer. And it's the original drum battle of Gene Krupa and Buddy Rich. And this is a fantastic album. You know, I mostly play rock music on drums, some funk. But whether you're a drummer or not, you could really appreciate the talents of both these guys. The legendary drum battles between these 2 guys was amazing. And this is an amazing recording. Sounds fucking fantastic, too. I believe it was recorded in Carnegie Hall. I mean, there's a whole backstory that relates to this album, the live performances. And I believe it was Carnegie Hall where they recorded this. It doesn't give a date, unfortunately, and I wish it did. Recorded live at Jazz at the Philharmonic in Carnegie Hall, New York. So every time I listen to this record, and I've listened to it a couple times, it's on the Verve label, and his father kept his records in excellent condition. This guy was a great collector. Every one of his records looked like black glass. The guy just took excellent care of his records. And there's no year on this, so I have no idea when this album came out. I always meant to look it up just to get some facts on it, but I never do. I just listen to it and just drool over myself because the drumming is so good on here. Every time I listen to it, and the Star Wars records as well, it always reminds me of Dave's father. And the guy now I'm kicking myself for not taking advantage of the, I don't know, somewhere between 1,500 and 2,000 records he had. I could have easily took home 400 to 500 records of stuff I was just curious about. Dave ended up selling his whole father's collection to a local Rasputin here. I think he made something like $500 or $400 off of it, and that was inventory for not only the store here in Stockton, but probably the Bay Area as well. So a bunch of my best friend's father's records are probably scattered all over the Bay Area at various Rasputin stores. But I'm glad at least I got this one and the 2 Star Wars records. So whenever I spin them, I think of my best friend Dave and his father. And this one real quick, Santana's Abraxas. This one reminds me so much of my uncle Mondo. Back in the day, back in the 70s, my Uncle Mondo played saxophone, flute, and Latin percussion, and he was in a lot of Latin rock bands here in town, and it was a pretty well-known local artist and musician here, and to the point where he got to do some good shows in the Bay Area, and got to sit in with Pete Escovedo and his daughter Sheila, who later became Sheila E. I even seen the photographs of him jamming with those two. Of course, this is before she became Sheila E. She was just known as Sheila Escovedo, and this is probably just in between her shows and tours with George Duke. In between, so when she would come back to the Bay Area and do shows with her father's band, he got to sit in and play a little bit of saxophone in the band. So that must have been, I know that it was a great honor for him. And I remember him showing me the photos of it. Why this reminds me of it, because my uncle was a huge Santana fan. And when I used to go over at his house, and he had a very small vinyl collection, but this was one of the records that he played almost all the time. And I can't help but listen to this Santana record and think of my Uncle Mondo. He taught me how to play congas and timbales, and I later just became a rock drummer, which to his disgust, probably because he doesn't have much of a high opinion about rock drummers. To my Uncle Mondo, it's all about jazz and Latin music. To him, he's not too impressed with rock music, but this album does remind me of my uncle. He doesn't play anymore, but back in his day, he was a kick-ass musician. All right, something I could recommend to you as a good summertime record. Well, Tim, when I think of summertime, I think of only one band, and that is Van Halen. Van Halen equals summertime to me, especially this album. It was the very first album that featured Sammy Hagar as the lead singer, and this album is 5150. They even have a song on here called Summer Nights, which is just a fun summertime, hanging out with friends, cruising, picking up chicks type of song. And that's what the lyrics are about for the song Summer Nights. So if you're looking for a good summertime album, man, this is it. Or just Van Halen, period, is a good summertime band. Every year when spring comes along and it's a bright, beautiful, sunny day, I always have to grab me some Van Halen, listen to it in the car while I'm driving around, and blast the living fuck out of it. Not to be biased here, here's one from the David Lee Roth era. My favorite album from that era is, of course, Fair Warning. Some great music on here. Mean Streets, Sinner's Swing, Hear About It Later, Unchained. So This Is Love, I already said Hear About It Later. Push Comes a Shove. There's some great music on here. I'm sure I'm leaving something out. But, God, this is without a doubt one of my favorite Van Halen records from the David Lee Roth era. And so I'll recommend those two with all my heart. And if you can find it on vinyl, man, because this album is so hard to track down for Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. This album is killer. And it's another one of those great summertime records. You'll have fun. Pound Cake, Judgment Day, Right Now, Top of the World. What else we got on here? 316 was a great little instrumental guitar song that you'll like. The Dream Is Over is such a rockin' tune. Again, Sammy Hagar's lead singer on this one as well. Such a great album. So Van Halen, there was a time when I was obsessed with Van Halen. Absolutely obsessed. I mean, so obsessed that I went out and got this. I don't show this very much to people because I just really got it for me. I even got myself a Van Halen tattoo. I got this back in 1990 or 91. I really can't remember. I was sober when I got it. In fact, this was like a 3-week decision. It took me 3 weeks to finally get up the nerve to get the Van Halen tattoo. I was like, I remember I debated it and debated it. Like, tattoos are permanent, but I really love this band. So I went and got a Van Halen tattoo, and I don't show it much because I just wanted it for myself. I mean, a lot of people get tattoos, they have to show it off, and that's not me. I just wanted it for myself. I don't even tell anyone about it, so I'm surprised I even showed it on the VC. Well, anyway, this really turned out to be a long video, but you asked a lot of questions. So I hope this serves as a good response to your thread, Tim. Congratulations on passing the century mark on the sub count of your channel. Great channel. You show some good albums, stuff I'm not familiar with, but I get to learn something from you. And you turn me on to some artists I otherwise would have never found. So always something to learn when I go to your channel. All right, kids, that's going to do it for King's Drummer. I'll see you at the next video.